Two viable candidates make Alabama's Chief Justice race one to watch closely. News 4's Ken Curtis previews the Republican showdown.
In late January, Justice Sarah Stewart brought her campaign for Chief Justice to Daleville. A few weeks later, we met her at Alabama's Supreme Court, 90 miles up the road in Montgomery.
We have some tremendous responsibilities in this room.
9 justices here, Stewart is one of them, have the final say in the state court system as they hear appeals from lower courts.
I really want to push the energy and the resources from Montgomery down to the trial courts.
Sarah Stewart knows trial courts. She was a Mobile trial judge for 13 years before becoming state Supreme Court justice. Stewart is among those who believe Alabama and America are at a crossroads.
We need to be in the judicial branch better partners with law enforcement to try to get our arms around the epidemic of crime that we have going across the state.
I'm the most conservative candidate.
Attorney Brian Taylor is Stewart's sole opponent.
Sarah Stewart has the most liberal record of any justice on the Alabama Supreme Court.
Taylor is an Iraqi war veteran, an attorney for over 2 decades, legal counsel to 2 Alabama governors and former state representative.
She has a record of being soft on crime and letting the most violent criminals off free.
That is something Stewart insists is untrue. She points to her time as a Mobile judge, then the past 5 years on the Alabama Supreme Court.
I want people to know that I'm a true conservative.
While Taylor and Stewart sometimes disagree, they do agree that credibility is the most important thing for the Alabama judicial system.
And I'm concerned about what's happened in this country just in the last 3 to 5 years. And people are very worried that we're losing touch with reality.
And without the ethical behavior that people can look at and say they're going to do the right thing every time, then that whole trust unravels.
Current Chief Justice Tom Parker is unable to run for re-election because of his age. In Montgomery, Ken Curtis, your hometown news leader.
Tomorrow's winner of this race faces Greg Griffin, the only Democratic candidate for Chief Justice.